Hello, everyone. I'm Trevor Ault. We're coming on the air because President Biden is delivering remarks on vaccination efforts across the U.S. and worldwide. Let's listen.
In under 150 days. That's an important milestone that just didn't happen on its own or by chance. It took the ingenuity of American scientists, the full capacity of American companies, and the whole of government response across federal, state, tribal, and local governments. Together, we built an unparalleled vaccination program and managed one of the biggest and most complicated logistical challenges in American history. And above all, we got here because of the American people stepping up and getting vaccinated, helping family, friends, neighbors get vaccinated. And just remember what the situation was like 150 days ago. We didn't have enough vaccine supply for all Americans. We didn't have the vaccine infrastructure, or the people who administer the vaccines, or the places where the people could get vaccinated. But we turned it around together by acting quickly and aggressively and equitably. We secured enough vaccine supply for every American. And as I announced last week during my visit to Europe, we are now in a position to provide more than 1.5 billion vaccine doses to the rest of the world, the 100 poorest nations. We developed and deployed over 9,000 federal personnel, including 5,100 active duty military to support the vaccine effort and to get shots into arms. And now we have more than 81,000 vaccination sites across the country, including over 42,000 local pharmacies. Thanks to this wartime response, we've gotten 300 million shots in the arms of Americans in 150 days. Months ahead of what most anyone thought was possible when we started. In fact, if you remember, a lot of people were skeptical that we could even get 100 million shots in my first 100 days into people's arms. But we did it. We kept going. And what we're seeing is a truly American accomplishment. 65% of American adults have gotten at least one shot, including 87% of our seniors. Just 5 months ago, we were at only 5% of adult Americans. 15 states and the District of Columbia have now reached at least 70% vaccination rate in their state. 26 states and D.C. have fully vaccinated, 50% or more of the adults. Nationwide, we have the lowest number of daily deaths since the first days of the pandemic. And we've built equity into the heart of our vaccination program from day one. 73% of the shots administered at community health centers through the federal program, and more than 58% of the shots administered by federally run vaccination sites have gone to people of color. And across the nation, people of color have accounted for more than half of all vaccinations in the last month. That's important progress. We have much more to do. Vice President Harris, as I speak, is in Atlanta, getting the word out about the vaccinations. Yesterday, I signed a bill, into law, making Juneteenth a federal holiday. And this weekend, folks in communities across the country are going to be canvassing and hosting events to encourage their families, friends, and neighbors to get vaccinated. The more we close the racial gap in vaccination rates, the more lives we'll save. And as our vaccination program is saving tens of thousands of lives. With that count growing each day, it's also allowing millions of Americans to get back to living their lives. Grandparents hugging their kids, kids back to school and getting ready for the summer, people going out to restaurants and traveling. Businesses are reopening. Folks, we're heading into a very different summer compared to last year. A bright summer, prayerfully a summer of joy. But as I promised you from the beginning, I will always give it to you straight. The good, the bad, and the truth. And the truth is that deaths and hospitalizations are drastically down in places where people are getting vaccinated. But unfortunately, cases and hospitalizations are not going down in many places in the lower vaccination rate states. They're actually going up in some places. A few days ago, We crossed 600,000. 600,000 Americans dead from COVID. More than every death in World War I, World War II, Vietnam, and 9/11 combined. So even while we're making incredible progress, it remains a serious and deadly threat. And the data is clear. If you are unvaccinated, you're at risk of getting seriously ill or dying or spreading it. People getting seriously ill and being hospitalized due to COVID-19 are those who have not been fully vaccinated. The new variant will leave unvaccinated people even more vulnerable than they were a month ago. This is a serious concern, especially because of what experts are calling the Delta variant. It's a variant that is more easily transmissible, potentially deadlier, and particularly dangerous for young people. But the good news is we have the solution. The science and the data are clear. The best way to protect yourself against these variants are to get fully vaccinated. So please, please, if you have one shot, get the second shot as soon as you can so you're fully vaccinated. If you haven't gotten vaccinated yet, get vaccinated now. Don't put it off. It's free, it's easy, it's convenient. And as I said many times, text your zip code to the numbers 438829. 438829 to find the sites where you can get vaccinated closest to you. Get your free Uber or Lyft ride to and from vaccination sites. I want to thank Uber and Lyft for their cooperation. Use the extended hours at thousands of pharmacies in June, including thousands that are open 24/7 on Friday this month. Most pharmacies now offer walk-in vaccinations. No appointments needed. Employers with less than 500 employees, the federal government is providing you a tax credit to give your workers paid time off to get vaccinated and recover if they need be. And for anyone who still questions, that's okay. You still have questions, but act now. Act now. Talk to your family and friends who've gotten vaccinated. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist. According to the American Medical Association, over 90% of physicians are fully vaccinated. They're making the choice to protect themselves and their communities and their patients. Follow their lead and make the choice for yourself. As I said, we're heading into, God willing, the summer of joy, a summer of freedom. On July 4, we're going to celebrate our independence from the virus as we celebrate our independence of our nation. We want everyone to be able to do that. Let's remember, we are the United States of America. Let's get this done, all of us together. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you.
Mr. President, do you have any comment about the Catholic bishops?
Could the Delta variant force us back into lockdown?
I don't think so, because so many people have already been vaccinated. But with the Delta variant can cause more people to die in areas where people have not been vaccinated. Where people have gotten the 2 shots, the Delta variant is highly unlikely to result in anything other than, the existing vaccines are very effective. So, no, it's not a lockdown, but some areas will be very hurt.
Any comment about what the Catholic bishops have done? Are you concerned about this rift within the Catholic Church, and are you concerned about this action?
Say again?
The Catholic bishops are moving on this resolution that would prevent you and others who've supported abortion from receiving communion. Are you concerned about the rift in the Catholic Church, and how do you feel personally about that?
That's a private matter, and I don't think that's going to happen. Thank you.
Mr. President, the bipartisan plan, give any reaction to that?
President Joe Biden speaking from the state dining room in the White House to announce the United States has now administered 300 million vaccine doses for the COVID-19 vaccine in his 150 days in office. He credited American scientists, American companies, American government workers, local, all the way up to the federal level for reaching that milestone, what he said was months ahead of schedule. And he said repeatedly that he believes we're now heading into a summer of joy and a summer of freedom. He did, however, talk about that still ever-present risk that this virus, while it has started to limit itself in the spread, it is still a threat, particularly in areas with a high percentage of unvaccinated Americans, and there is still work to be done. For more on this, let's bring in Dr. Alok Patel, a physician at Stanford Medical, and also ABC News Deputy Political Director Avery Harper, who will join us on the phone. Dr. Patel, I want to begin with you. 300 million doses is no doubt a substantial milestone. We got there relatively quickly, I think some people would say, and we're seeing the impact of that already. Cases from early January are down about 95%, daily cases. Deaths are down about 90% at the same time. However, we're seeing that pace start to slow, and 65% of American adults getting one dose means fully 1 in 3 American adults have not gotten a shot, even though they could. You have been on this from the very beginning. Taking a look back at all the way we've come, but also where we still need to go, how should Americans be feeling about where we sit in this pandemic?
Well, Trevor, that was an amazing kind of intro because you really nailed it when you talked about the fact that we are allowed to take a minute, be optimistic, and celebrate this progress and actually look at what we collectively have done, not just as Americans, but as a global community in fighting this pandemic. And I think it's noteworthy that we've gotten through these 300 million doses in 150 days. But Trevor, the one thing I really want to stress is we got there not just because of collaboration of science across the United States, but across the world, and also because we paid attention to equitable delivery. We paid attention to actually making sure that healthcare access was prioritized. And I hope that this is something that we don't just leave after the pandemic, and we pay attention to this for all aspects of public health intervention. Now, as you mentioned, yes, we don't have that full vaccine-acquired herd immunity that we're going for when we talk about getting 70 to 85% of all Americans fully vaccinated. But you know what the good news is that there is a net benefit coming from people who may have some natural immunity, and also in areas where vaccine rates are really high, such as in California, Vermont, New York City. We are seeing the effect of those vaccines. And this is really good news. It's great news for people out there to know that they work, they're efficient, and they're safe, as proof of the fact that millions and millions of people worldwide have gotten them. And the real world data shows that cases are going down and that side effects are extremely rare.
The president said they acted quickly, aggressively, and equitably, and they have been saying for some time now they've been targeting poor and rural Americans to make sure they get the shot too. Avery Harper, our deputy political director, the president wasn't entirely celebratory. He definitely made a point to talk about all the hard work that has gone into reaching this milestone. But we do know at the same time, with the vaccination rate slowing, it looks like almost certain to miss President Biden's goal of hitting 70% of adults getting at least one dose by the 4th of July. What is next for the Biden administration now to reach those people who are still hesitant or still holding out?
Well, listen, I think you heard him in that speech talk about encouraging folks to continue to go out and get the vaccine if they have not been vaccinated, touting all of the different initiatives from, getting free rides from Uber and Lyft, texting to find out where your vaccine center is. Those are all efforts to continue this push to get everyone vaccinated. And so we're still seeing the Biden administration take this victory lap of sorts, even though we know that the administration is expected to fall short of its goal of having 70% of adults with at least one shot by Independence Day. It's really important to note also that, many of the contracts to deliver the vaccine in the early months of the Biden presidency were actually secured by Trump appointees. And another point is that, the Biden administration really did work overtime to ensure an equitable distribution of this vaccine, making sure that distribution efforts were strong in hard-hit areas. So we're talking about those poor communities, rural communities, and communities of color, and that's really been an important part of this vaccine rollout.
And we saw, President Biden spent about half that speech and still trying to convince people who are holding out to get their shot. Dr. Patel, we don't want to dwell too much on the bad news, especially after the year and a half that we have still had. But I know that you know this. Even with deaths falling 90% from their peak in early January, we're still on average, according to ABC's analysis, losing 284 Americans reported dead to COVID-19 every day, what I frequently hear referred to as the equivalent of a plane crash every day. We know 70% has been the threshold for a lot of these big cities. A lot of them are hitting it. Some states are not even remotely close. Now we have the Delta variant. It is highly transmissible, and what I've heard is the greatest threat so far. What is the real threat to people who are still unvaccinated from this pandemic right now, with the spread seeming to dissipate a little bit?
Well, Trevor, as you kind of hinted, the Delta variant is the most dangerous variant we've seen, with some scientists calling it the triple threat, meaning it is more contagious, more transmissible, it potentially causes more severe illness, and it's possible that it may be able to evade some of those immunities, the immune system's response to other variants. This makes it a very, very dangerous strain to become the dominant strain. We've seen cases double in the United States from only the ones we've tracked. So if you look at a community where vaccination rates are low, and restrictions are lifted, and people may not have any type of protection, that's a setup for the Delta variant to come in there and just run amok and throw a party. And the one other note I have to mention with regards to vaccine hesitancy is there's still a large proportion of people who still have questions and don't trust the vaccine. It's okay to ask questions. I echo what President Biden said. But one small asterisk I got to throw out there. We all celebrate the speed at which this was accomplished. The one thing people need to remember is that the mRNA technology these vaccines were based off, Pfizer, Moderna, that's been in process for 20 years. The speed was at which they were able to reprogram it for SARS-CoV-2 and get it distributed. But people by no means should think that this vaccine was rushed or that it is an experiment. It's been worked on diligently for more than 15 years.
I remember, Doctor, I was in Connecticut the day the first shots were administered there, and a doctor who had been on the front lines told me that he believes decades down the line that this vaccine will be regarded on the same level of achievement as putting a person on the moon. And it sounds like that's what you're speaking to as well. Avery, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, the president also mentioned, now that we have vaccine doses available for every American, plans to offer, I believe he said, 500 million doses to the poorest nations in the world. They've talked a little bit about their efforts to spread those doses where they are needed beyond the border of the United States. What can you tell us about those efforts?
All right. Well, this is a president who ran on the notion of a return to moral leadership, of restoring the soul of this nation. And I think Biden would say that part of that is helping other nations, being a beacon of hope for people around the world. So this is really a gesture of goodwill and an important part of fighting and eventually ending the pandemic. This is also about influence, of the U.S. abroad. He didn't do it in these remarks, but Biden has previously said that, we are sending more doses of vaccine around the world than Russia and China. So this is definitely a gesture of goodwill, but it's also about leverage around the world, too.
Absolutely. Avery Harper, our deputy political director, along with Dr. Alok Patel from Stanford Medical. We appreciate both of your times. The United States now administering 300 million COVID-19 vaccine doses in 150 days of President Biden taking office. And we're going to have continuing updates right here on ABC News Live throughout the day, and a complete wrap-up tonight at 7 o'clock Eastern on ABC News Live Prime with Lindsay Davis. Thank you for joining us. I'm Trevor Alt. Have a good rest of your day.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.